Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is Joe. This report is for the 9th of June. And we got the recovery after the whole Elon Musk, Donald Trump spat sort of faded from the headlines, and it kind of flipped to the riots in LA, which nobody really is all that interested in because it was a thing that was always going to happen. And this was part of that breakdown that why California has lost so much population in general, because people who wanted normal lives had to leave these locations where you created conditions that are just impossible to work in, as well as the taxes, everything else. But from our regular readings, you got the ES magenta continuing to move along. You also have that orange DOC continuing to drop. If it drops below our red, that would be your next stronger push. And this is exactly what we would expect from where we are at the time of the month. And new money coming in and was looking for opportunity, got some discount, and boom, popped it up. But we've got other warning signs on the horizon, which we get to when we move into oil and that. But even from an NQ standpoint, it's not super spectacular from any standpoint. And that's just because of the divergence. You got short-term buyers all reset, so it's poised. But you got to have some kind of impetus that says, yeah. So, Trump is calling for the Fed to reduce interest rates by 1 percentage point. They're not going to do it. Treasury yields continue to be excessive, given what you're seeing from an inflationary standpoint. That, though the Fed, not wrong in this case, because now you see inflation potential for heating up if oil gets out of control here. That's a problem, and this is already borderline where you'll start to see shifts in it. So, not a good sign from that standpoint that oil is continuing that rise. And that really is the problem, because, again, this was all based on drill, baby, drill was correct if you could keep oil prices at a level that was reasonable, and not being able to do so. You tied in with all of the other things we talked about, the lawsuits, everything being crippled from actually implementing change in the government. And you can see how the system has been structured that way, that you really can't make any changes to it. They've set a course of things, and that bubble is what it is, and to try and burst it takes an enormous amount of momentum, and currently that doesn't exist at this particular stage. So it makes it clear for people who didn't know that it existed, but for everyone who's known how the system operates, it wasn't going to give up easily. From a euro standpoint, of course, still artificially high, and again, sets up a strange advantage for those who have euros to move into dollars and take advantage of the higher rates relative to what the EU is doing, because the ECB keeps cutting, because obviously they have no have to. It's a recessionary situation in the eurozone, has been for a while, and now their shift towards the war footing is going to improve some GDP, but this is where that false GDP reading, where anyone who's including government spending in their GDP, you're not getting a real read, because that's not actual growth. It's not actual production of anything of value. And that was always a nice move by economists to make up for the fact that you could shift more from the private sector to the government side and still pretend like it's actually having a positive impact, and it's not. Gold easing off because of the tension, but you could see another run here of gold, particularly if oil continues to rise. That will be a clear indication of it. We ended up with a nice move for Bitcoin coming back up there. That's pretty strong, so that should start its next return back up, having filled in nicely. So behaving much more comfortably. I mean, people still don't like the beta of it, but at the end of the day, pretty predictable as far as our readings go. So I don't see any issues with that. We look at it from the 50K standpoint. We ended up with the NBI white, but you had magenta leading it. And that's that typical short cover rally. And magenta is strong above it. And even when it started to fade off a little bit, you ended up with magenta below. You were doing so at a point where shorts were really not active. So it held support just fine. It was just a little bit of back and forth within that. And then once the reset started with the magenta moving back over, but you also had the same cross of blue. And so when you get those actions at the same time, you see that there's a shift in the balance of power. That's propelled things to where we're at this particular stage. We would still expect that where the readings are there, that we push towards back to that 100%, which would take you back over the 6K number. If we dip below, we're still over it now, but you get all the way up to what, 6,025 range. We're at 612. So we already had a move that took us right back to test that 6,000 again. So from that standpoint, all of it's pretty straightforward and clean. We look at it from what happened during the intraday, the big rally. They filled it back in, and then later in the day, pushed it right back up to the top. So you took care of all your options set up within that, and then it just eased off back into the post market. And now we're here in the after and pre-U.S. Open, but European next rally coming back, bringing it back to the positive side. So we'll probably start with a fairly neutral open for the U.S. session. Nice way to start the week, but the bias is still to the upside, hasn't changed any. But we can see some added pressures, particularly keeping an eye on oil. That's definitely going to have a bigger impact than most people pay attention to. But it's something we have to watch along with rates. With the Fed being completely absent of the situation, difficult to see any real strong growth development, even with the positive moves, from restructuring and that. It just, unfortunately, just going to take a lot of time, and probably now you're looking at first or second quarter of next year before anything even takes place as far as the actions that have already been put underway that have been on hold because of the situation of delay. As always, though, anything relevant, I'll put it on the team chat for us. Have a good one. Trade well.